Nicole and I have a soft spot for Jim Walsh, the chair of the Washington State Republican Party. I like BSing with him and stuff, but I just like, man, one day I'm just yelling at him via text. The next day I'm like yelling at him on the show. And then I'm like, oh, he's great. He still comes on the show and talks to us. I have a love-hate relationship with you, Jim. This segment is brought to you by Eastside Weight Loss Clinic. Some patients, like me, can lose 20 to 30 pounds in a month or two. Schedule your free 15-minute consultation today at eastsideweightlossclinic.com. So if you didn't see it this morning, I'll play a clip from it momentarily. We dropped a new election interview with Congressman Dan Newhouse, who is running for re-election as a Republican over in the 4th Congressional District, which is essentially the middle chunk of Washington State. And he has a Republican challenger. It's a very red district, so not a surprise, and it is Jared Sessler. So Jared Sessler is the Trump-endorsed candidate, and really a lot of his campaign has been about the fact that Dan Newhouse voted to impeach former President Donald Trump. I mean, Dan Newhouse was already primaried in 2022 because of that vote. So there's definitely a segment of the Republican Party who won't forgive him for it and want him out of office because of it, primarily. And I'm not going to fault those people. They can feel how they want to feel. And look, Jared Sessler has every right in the world to run on that platform or any platform. This is America. Welcome to America. And so you have a R-on-R race there in that congressional district, which for Republicans, like, let's think about this rationally, right? I'm the Washington State Republican Party, and we have virtually no money, and Democrats are outspending us like 100 to 1. Gee, where should I spend my resources? Should I spend my resources on a reliable red congressional district where no matter the outcome in November, you're going to have a conservative elected? No, probably not, right? That would be stupid. Or should I spend it on like highly contested R-on-D races like the governor's race or the commissioner of public lands or helping get the initiatives passed or I don't know, any one of the 8 really tight races in the state Senate that could determine whether Democrats get a supermajority? No, let's spend our money on that R-on-R congressional race. So this mailer went out to constituents in the 4th Congressional District. The one side of it, 3 strikes for Dan Newhouse. It's kind of a cool picture of Dan, though. Doesn't he look cool in that picture?
He does look cool.
He has sunglasses. Yeah, that's not the picture I would have picked. It says, voted with Democrats to impeach Trump. Voted for the January 6th commission. Refuses to endorse Trump for president. 3 strikes and you're out, Dan. Okay, that's fine if it were paid for by an anti-Dan PAC or by Jared Sessler, but it was paid for by the Washington State Republican Party. On the backside, this is what really drives me nuts. Yeah, paid for by the Washington State Republican Party, all these reasons. Oh, Dan voted to impeach Trump, all this stuff. Dan knew it has a pit. Swear to God, if you're listening, let me paint this picture for you. Dan Newhouse stands with Democrats as a picture of Dan Newhouse next to Bob Ferguson, which I can't tell. Is that photoshopped or is that actually a picture of Dan Newhouse next to Bob Ferguson?
Well, it looks very photoshopped because they're different sizes.
But I don't know. It looks like his arm might be around him, doesn't it? Kind of like maybe he's... but anyway,
maybe
I don't know.
His arm's on him.
Right?
I don't know.
Dan Newhouse stands with Democrats, paid for by the Washington State Republican Party. How insane is that?
Pretty insane.
That's mental. That you would spend first of all, there's 2 things that are mental about this. You have no money and you're going to spend a cent on an R-on-R race. Why would you do that? Why would you do that? No matter what, you'll keep that seat. And no matter what, Dan has a long record of conservative values. He's going to vote with you, in line with you on most things. So you're not getting a Democrat if Jared Sessler doesn't win. Now, Jared Sessler is the endorsed candidate for the Washington State Republican Party. They endorsed him at the convention along with like Semi Bird, et cetera, more Trump-aligned candidates. But that still doesn't mean that the state party is under any obligation to spend money sending out mailers to defeat a sitting Republican congressman. What a waste of money. I mean, that's insane. As someone, I haven't donated to the state Republican Party, but I've made donations to individual candidates. But I can tell you this is the reason why I won't donate to the state Republican Party. Because that's an absolute utter waste of money. But then to suggest, like, even if this is a real picture of them, like at some event or something, to suggest that Dan Newhouse stands with Bob Ferguson, that's so dumb. That's so dishonest. Like, again, I have pictures with I think I have a picture with Jared Sessler somewhere. He asked me to take a picture once at an event. Does that mean I stand with Jared Sessler? Like, not really. I mean, I called him out on the show for saying Muslims shouldn't be in Congress, and I've supported Dan Newhouse. I literally made a contribution to his campaign. But this isn't even about that. This is about common sense. This doesn't make any sense. This is so dumb. It's infuriating to me. And that you would pick a picture of him next to Bob Ferguson. Like, I know that's how politics works, whatever. I would be fine with it if it came from Sessler's campaign, because that's just the name of the game. But it came from the Washington State Republican Party. And that is just so utterly stupid. So speaking of, we have invited both Dan Newhouse and Jared Sessler on the show. We're still working on Jared. He can't come in, but I think we've asked him to it has to be in person, right? So we had Dan Newhouse on the show for an election interview. It posted late last night on Patreon Locals, but there is no paywall on it. None of our election interviews have paywalls. We talked for about 45 minutes about this race, about the issues, and of course, yes, about his impeachment vote against former President Donald Trump and how it sort of followed him, 4 years later. So here's a clip from that interview, which again is available right now if you go to undividedpod.com. We can't have this conversation about the differences between you and Jared without talking about Donald Trump. I mean, he essentially, that has been one of the main focuses of why he's running, how he's campaigning, is like, you're the congressman who voted to impeach Donald Trump. How has that manifested on the campaign trail for you? Is that an issue that is brought up a lot?
Oh, he makes sure it is, because that's the only thing he's got, really. Because if people are asked, they agree with most everything that I do. And not 100%, obviously, but most of the things that I stand for and the votes I've taken, the things that I've accomplished have been really good for my district and the people in my district. The one vote, the impeachment vote, I don't hide behind it.
No.
I stood up for the Constitution that day. And that's a big issue for a lot of people on both sides. Some people just can't get beyond it and will never support me. And a lot of people maybe didn't agree with it, but recognize all of the other things that I've been able to do while I'm in Congress and are still supporting me. And then, frankly, there's a lot of people that come up to me and say, thank you for standing up for the Constitution. So I know that's a big issue. It certainly is. If it weren't for that one issue, I may not even have an opponent,
Right.
But that's where we are. But I think that we're going to be successful disregarding that. People will still look at the bigger picture and see what's most important here.
Well, maybe they didn't like it, but they're like, well, we still like him. We can look past that.
Right.
But on the, so much of what's happening at the national level, obviously, is going to influence all the down ballot races.
I agree.
Not the Trump thing is an issue here. Any Republican congressional candidates on this side of the Cascades, they absolutely don't want to talk about him, don't want to touch it. Different scenario over there. I mean, have you taken a position in the presidential race on who you're going to vote for?
I've told people time and time again, I'm a lifelong Republican.
Yeah.
I've never voted for a Democrat.
Oh, you're not going to vote for Kamala Harris?
That would be a really tough thing to do.
Yeah.
I truly think, Brandi, and you can appreciate this too, I think Republican priorities, Republican policies, the direction that Republicans want to take the country are truly better in the long run.
Yeah.
I've many times described the kind of the socialist direction that the other party wants to take us. So that would be very hard for me to not vote Republican.
So you're going to vote for Donald Trump?
That's my plan.
That's his plan. So that's part of my conversation with Congressman Dan Newhouse, a Republican running for re-election in Washington's 4th District. We have invited Jared Sessler into the studio, see if he can make the trip over to sit down with us and have a conversation. And you can watch that full interview. Go to undividedpod.com, undividedpod.com. There is no paywall. You can watch any of our election interviews. In fact, if you go to Patreon, there's a little tab that has collections, and you can click on the Election 2024 collection, and it'll list all the interviews that we've done for you to watch. Now, I was already getting some pushback on this on social media. Julie Barrett, who's I would consider a friend of the show, who's very involved politically, she said, I don't understand why this is only acceptable for one side. You said you donated to Newhouse's campaign. They're spending money on attack ads against Sessler. I don't care if they spend money on attack ads against each other. I made that clear. This is the very big difference is it's from the party. Of course, two candidates are going to attack each other in attack ads. Now, I don't love some of the more nasty, vitriolic attack ads, but if you're slinging it back and forth, like, okay. But it's from the party. That's the issue that I have, is the party is wasting its money that could be going in a million different places in competitive races against Democrats or on our race. And mailers aren't cheap. So that's a totally separate issue. Like, if Newhouse sending out attack ads against Sessler and Sessler sending out attack ads against Newhouse, I don't care. And then she also had pointed out that there's another, which I was not aware of, that there's an R-on-R race in the ballot in Legislative District 2. It's a guaranteed win, yet the House ROC, so it's the basically like the fundraising, like election wing for Republicans over in the House, is spending $100,000 to defeat one of the candidates. I also think that's a waste of money, especially when there are some really, really hard fought R-on-D races and you're talking about balance of kind of power in terms of a supermajority. You shouldn't be spending a freaking dime on an R-on-R race. That is a dumb waste of money. So yeah, I agree with you on that one. I just wasn't aware of it. And it's not maybe it isn't as high profile as a congressional race. So it's just, this is why Democrats win, like they will coalesce. And not to say, by the way, that Democrats don't go out and try to unseat sitting Democrats. We've seen that. Jay Inslee did it to Mark Mullet. They're doing it to Larry Springer right now in the 45th with a more progressive challenger. They do that, but they're in a position to be able to do it. Money overfloweth for the state Democratic Party, and they aren't on the margins of control of you. They would never be doing that. They would never be doing that if it was a seat or two and they weren't sure if they were going to be in the majority or not, or whatever it is, or trying to get back into the majority. They wouldn't be playing those games. They can play those games because they're that far ahead. They're that far ahead. Republicans aren't. You can't be playing those games. You have to be united, and you should not be spending precious funds on R-on-R races.